Emily signed the lease without reading the fine print. It was her first solo place. No roommates, no crusty college furniture, no shared laundry in sketchy basements. Ashgrove Heights was quiet, clean, and surprisingly affordable. Too affordable. Room 616, the leasing agent, Mr. Daniels, said, handing her the keys. Corner unit. Great view. Just ignore any rumors you might hear. Emily blinked. What kind of rumors? He smiled a little too quickly. Old buildings have old stories. That was the first red flag. The elevator creaked as it rose. She had to press the button twice to make it move. It groaned like something waking up from a long sleep. The hallway on the 6th floor was dim and cold, with a flickering light buzzing above her new door. 616. The numbers were brass, polished, and ice cold to the touch. As she turned the key, Emily thought she heard something whispering behind the door. She froze. The whisper stopped. The apartment was clean, neat, almost too neat. The air felt thick. She opened the windows. No breeze. She checked the sink. Water pressure, fine. The walls were freshly painted, but something about them looked strange, like the color was hiding something. She touched the living room wall beside the thermostat. It was warm. Not just warm, pulsing, like a heartbeat. That night, she unpacked the essentials. Toothbrush, laptop, a throw blanket, and her lucky mug. The Wi-Fi worked fine, but her phone dropped to 1 bar. She checked her messages, no signal. Shrugging it off, she settled onto the couch and opened Netflix. 10 minutes into the show, the hall closet door opened by itself. She turned, frowning. No draft. She got up, walked over, and shut firmly. As she turned back toward the couch, it clicked open again. At midnight, the lights flickered once, then dimmed. Emily got up to check the switch. That's when she noticed it. The closet door, wide open again. But this time, something was inside. Not a figure. Not a shadow. Just darkness. Deep and wrong. And in the middle of that darkness, a pair of eyes. Open. Watching. Then the lights shut off completely. The lights came back on at 12:47 a.m. Emily sat frozen on the couch, flashlight in one hand, kitchen knife in the other. Her eyes were locked on the closet. Still open. Still dark. But the eyes, they were gone. Or hiding. She didn't sleep. She didn't unpack anything else. She just sat there, waiting for morning. By daylight, everything felt less terrifying. The apartment looked normal again. Sort of. But the air still felt off, like the room was breathing. The super Mr. Klein came by to replace a smoke detector battery. He was short, gray-haired, and spoke with the voice of someone who'd stopped caring 20 years ago. Hey, does this building have, like, a pest problem? Emily asked. Mr. Klein barely looked up. Cockroaches, maybe. Mice sometimes. Why? Just weird noises. In the walls. He frowned. You hear scratching? No. More like whispering. He stared at her for a moment longer than he should have. Then he said, Old buildings settle strange. You get used to it. But as he left, she saw him pause at the door to 616. He reached out, touched the number plate for half a second, and then walked away without a word. That night, the vents started whispering again. It began in the bathroom. A soft voice, barely audible, like someone was talking from the other side of the wall. Emily pressed her ear to the vent. The voice was hers. Not just her tone, her actual voice. Repeating something over and over. I shouldn't have come here. I shouldn't have come here. I shouldn't have come. She jerked back. The voice stopped, but something inside the duct let out a faint sigh. She called her best friend, Laura, in the morning. You ever had a ghost in your apartment? Emily asked, trying to sound like she was joking. Laura laughed. You didn't even believe in ghosts last year. I'm rethinking that. You're tired. Moving is stressful. You're alone. Give it a few days. Emily almost agreed, until she found the scratches. They were behind the bedroom dresser. 4 deep lines in the drywall, vertical. 2 wide for nails. 2 even for an animal. They looked like fingertips. Dragging upward. She began recording at night. Her phone would capture audio while she slept, or tried to. Each morning, she listened. The first 2 nights, static. Creaks. A pipe moaning. Night 3, breathing. Low. Rhythmic. And not hers. Followed by a voice. I'm still inside. Emily started keeping the lights on, but that made it worse, because now she saw the shadows. They moved just out of sync with her body, like someone was mimicking her from inside the walls. She spoke to another tenant in the laundry room, Tom, from 611. Do you know anything about my unit? 616. Tom froze, then looked around, lowered his voice. You should move. Now. Why? He hesitated. People who live in 616 change. It starts small. Lights flicker. Vents whisper. Then they start forgetting stuff. Big stuff. Like their name. Or if they're really alive. Emily forced a laugh. Sounds like local legend crap. Tom didn't laugh back. Just don't look through the vents, he said. No matter what you hear. Then he walked away. That night, she did exactly what he warned her not to. Around 2:15 a.m., the whispering returned, louder this time. Coming from the vent above her bed. Emily climbed onto the nightstand, flashlight in hand, and peered inside. For a moment, nothing. Just dust. A cobweb. The metal glint of the vent shaft. And then, a face. Pressed against the far end of the duct. Mouth wide open. Screaming. But no sound came out. Only her voice, whispering again and again. Let me out. She fell backward, hitting the floor hard. When she looked up, the face was gone. But the vent was still breathing. Emily didn't sleep at all. The next morning, she packed a bag and took the elevator down. She was going to stay with Laura. Just for a night or 2. Clear her head. The elevator stopped at floor 5. The doors didn't open. The lights went out. Total darkness. Then a single sound. Breathing. Not from her. From behind her. She reached for the emergency button, nothing. She turned slowly, and saw her own reflection. Not in a mirror, but standing behind her. Mouth stitched shut. Eyes crying black. It smiled. The elevator roared to life and dropped to floor. Doors opened. Empty hallway. No reflection. No voice. Just a whisper behind her ear as she fled. You can't leave yet. Emily didn't go to Laura's. She made it outside. Made it all the way to her car. Keys in hand. But the moment she turned the ignition, the engine coughed once, twice, and died. The battery wasn't dead. The fuel wasn't low. Everything worked, except the will to leave. She stared at her building through the windshield. The 6th floor window of her apartment was open. She hadn't left it open. And in the pale morning light, she could swear she saw someone standing there, watching. She walked back upstairs like a sleepwalker, like the building had wrapped something around her ankles, her chest, her mind. Room 616 was still unlocked, still breathing. She spent the rest of the morning searching online for anything about her apartment. She searched for Ashgrove Heights 616 and hit the first real lead on a ghost forum that hadn't been updated in 5 years. A thread titled, "Do not move into room 616. Please read." She clicked. Inside were dozens of posts, scattered, panicked, eerie. Lived there 3 months. Started forgetting my own name. Still have nightmares. My girlfriend moved in and stopped answering my texts. I went there. She didn't recognize me. They mimic your voice. Don't talk to them. The building eats time. You'll forget when you got there. You'll forget why you wanted to leave. There's someone in the vents. I think it used to be a person. One post caught her breath. I got out. Barely. You have to go down the old stairwell. The one behind the fire door. They don't watch that way. It's the only way out. Emily jumped to her feet. The fire door. She'd seen it before, between 614 and 618. Locked, painted over, ignored. She'd never thought to try it. She stepped out into the hall and walked quietly down the corridor. No sound, just the soft hum of overhead lights. She reached the fire door, put her hand on the handle, and froze. Someone was crying on the other side. A woman, muffled, guttural. Emily leaned in, heart pounding. "Hello," she whispered. The crying stopped. A beat. Then a voice answered. In her own voice. "Please let me out." She backed away slowly. The handle turned on its own. She ran back to the apartment, slammed the door shut, and locked it. All 3 locks. Then pushed a chair up under the knob. She wasn't staying here. She just didn't know where else to go. Later that night, she heard her neighbor, Tom, in the hall. She rushed out. "Tom." He turned. "Emily, I need to ask you something. About the other people who lived in this apartment." He hesitated. "You really want to know?" She nodded. He exhaled. "There was a guy. Lived here maybe 10 years ago. Quiet. Friendly. Then one day, just gone. Left everything. Didn't even cancel his lease. And before him, a couple. Young. Moved in, stopped leaving the unit. Neighbors thought they were fighting. Cops showed up once. Screaming, banging. But no one answered the door. A week later, silence. Super let himself in. Apartment was empty. Food rotting. But no people. No sign of where they went. Emily felt dizzy. Has anyone ever died here? Tom stared at her. and said quietly, not officially, then turned and walked away. That night, she heard footsteps in the kitchen. She grabbed her phone, flipped on the camera, and tiptoed down the hallway. Nothing there. She turned the camera to selfie mode and whispered, "Okay, I'm in room 616. If anything happens." Behind her, on the screen, the cabinet door opened, and something crawled out. A hand. Pale. Thin. Fingers too long. Then a face. Emily screamed and turned, but there was nothing. Just an open cabinet, and a trail of wet fingerprints on the tile. She slept on the floor that night, every light on. Just before dawn, she sat up suddenly, her mouth dry, heart racing. She hadn't heard anything, but she felt something. Watched. She turned to the closet door. It was open again, and inside, barely visible in the dark, a figure stood facing the back wall, shoulders heaving, head bowed. She whispered, "Who are you?" The figure spoke without turning. A hoarse voice. Male. "I used to live here too." The man in the closet didn't move. He just stood there, facing the back wall, shivering. Emily froze, mouth dry. I don't understand," she whispered. "Who are you?" His voice was low, cracked, barely audible. "I tried to leave, but the building remembers." She inched closer. "Are you trapped?" He gave a soft laugh, empty and bitter. "Not trapped. Kept. There's a difference." She took one step forward, and the closet door slammed shut. When she yanked it open, it was empty. Nothing but her winter coat, and the faint scent of salt water. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She grabbed her phone, keys, and flashlight and ran straight for the fire door. No hesitating this time. No second guesses. She reached it, hand shaking, and gripped the old iron handle. Cold, like ice pulled from deep earth. She pulled. It opened. Behind the door, a narrow concrete stairwell. Old, cracked, unlit. The walls were wet, dripping. She took a step down, and her phone lost signal completely. Flashlight flickering. Each step echoed strangely, like the space-swallowed sound. She descended slowly. One floor, then two, then more. No exits, no landings, just stairs. Going down, forever. Eventually, she stopped, turned back, climbed 5 steps, and saw nothing above her. Just more stairs. She wasn't going deeper. The building was stretching. Voices echoed behind her now. Dozens. Familiar. Whispers of people she'd never met, but somehow remembered. "Help. It's cold. Don't forget who you are." And one voice, her voice, singing softly in reverse. She turned, heart racing, and shined her light. At the bottom of the stairs stood a mirror. Tall, old, ornate, carved with twisting figures and eyes. Not a reflection of her, but of the apartment. Room 616, just as she left it. Her keys on the counter. A lamp still glowing. A figure standing by the couch. Wait. She leaned closer. The figure was her, but wrong. Too still. Too pale. And smiling. She backed away, turned to flee up the stairs, and ran right into someone. She screamed and dropped the flashlight. It clattered down, landing on a stair below, spinning. And in that flickering light, she saw the man from the closet, standing inches from her. His eyes were gone, hollow sockets leaking black tears. He whispered, "We all live here now." Emily bolted back up the stairs. No plan, no hope, just up. Her legs screamed. Her lungs burned. But the stairs didn't end. Every turn looked the same. The walls whispered. Her phone buzzed once in her pocket. A text from an unknown number. "You're home now. Stop running." She collapsed, sobbing, shaking, and the stairs began to vibrate beneath her, like breathing, like laughter. But then, she heard something new. Music. A faint piano. A tune her mother used to hum when she was little. Something real. Emily stood slowly, followed the sound. One more turn, and a door appeared. Wooden, old, unmarked. She reached for the knob. It turned. She stepped through, and found herself in the lobby. Back where she started. Morning sunlight poured through the windows. The front desk sat empty. People passed by outside. Normal. Safe. Real. Emily turned toward the front door. She was so close. Then she heard it. Behind her. A voice. Her voice. "Emily, wait." She turned and saw herself at the top of the stairs behind the desk, gray-skinned, hollow-eyed, smiling. "Don't you want to stay?" Emily didn't answer. She ran, straight through the front door, into the street, into the light. She collapsed onto the sidewalk, crying, breathing, alive. A man from across the street called out, "Hey, are you okay?" She nodded. I need to go. I can't stay here." "Yeah," he said, pointing behind her. "Place has a bad rep. Thought they shut it down years ago." She turned. Ashgrove Heights stood still and silent. The windows dark. No one inside. No sixth floor. No room 616. Just an empty, crumbling building. Vacant. Condemned. Emily didn't sleep for 2 days after escaping Ashgrove Heights. She checked into a cheap motel an hour outside the city, away from high-rises, away from old buildings, away from anything with vents or flickering lights. The motel room smelled like bleach and cigarettes, but it was real. Or so she thought. She called Laura. "I'm safe," she said, voice trembling. "I got out." Laura sounded relieved. "Oh my God. Are you okay? What happened?" "I don't know how to explain it. The place was wrong. Like it was alive. Like it didn't want me to leave." "I'm just glad you're out," Laura said. "Please don't go back." "I won't," Emily promised. But she couldn't stop thinking about it. The mirror. The man in the closet. The version of herself that watched from the other side of the vent. She tried reporting it. Called the city. Filed a complaint about the building's condition, the fake listing, the missing records. They told her, "Ashgrove Heights has been vacant for over 6 years. No units have been rented. The property is condemned." She emailed the leasing office number, undeliverable. Tried calling Mr. Daniels, no such contact. She searched the building on Google Maps. It was blurred out, as if someone had erased it. Or as if the building had erased itself. Still, she had the key. Room 616. Brass. Cold. Real. She held it sometimes at night, just to prove to herself that it happened, that she hadn't imagined it. But then, she started seeing things. At first, it was her reflection. She'd catch glimpses in mirrors that didn't match her movements. Her reflection blinked too slowly, smiled too long. Once while brushing her teeth, she saw her reflection point behind her. There was nothing there, but the toothpaste in her mouth tasted like salt. Then the dreams came back. She stood in the hallway of the 6th floor. Only this time, she wasn't trying to escape. She was showing someone else around. "Here's the bedroom," she'd say. "Nice light. Great acoustics." The walls whispered. The vents breathed. She smiled, because it wasn't her anymore. It was the other one, the Emily who stayed. She woke one morning to a text from an unknown number. "Room available. Ashgrove Heights. Unit 616. A photo was attached. The building, perfectly intact. Lights on. Door open. She deleted it, threw her phone across the room, and still, it buzzed again 10 minutes later. "We saved your place. Come home." Emily drove back. She didn't want to. She just had to. She parked across the street and stared. Ashgrove Heights looked brand new. Renovated. Clean. Open. People walked in and out like any other building. But the 6th floor? The windows were dark. She went to the leasing office next door. A new agent greeted her, young, fresh-faced, polite. "Hi, I'm looking for an apartment. Something quiet. Corner unit if possible." The agent smiled. "Actually, we just had a vacancy open up. Room 616. Emily didn't flinch. "Oh yeah. Is it nice?" "Great view," the agent said. "Lots of history." He pulled out a key. Brass. Polished. Still cold. Emily held out her hand to take it, and paused. Something moved behind the leasing agent's eyes. A flicker of green. He smiled wider. Too wide. "Don't worry," he said softly. "You've always lived there." Emily didn't take the key. Not at first. She just stood there, staring at it, frozen. Something inside her screamed don't. A deep, primal voice from a place untouched by logic. But her hand still moved forward, slowly, almost mechanically, until the cold brass was resting in her palm again. It fit too perfectly, like it had never left. She told herself she wouldn't go back. She'd only taken the key out of curiosity, for closure, just to prove the building was real, just to see. But by nightfall, she was parked across the street from Ashgrove Heights, staring up at the 6th floor. One window was glowing softly. Room 616. As if it had been waiting for her to notice. Her phone buzzed. Another message. "You left something behind. We'll keep it warm." Emily dropped the phone onto the passenger seat. She didn't pick it up again. She tried to go home to her parents the next day. Packed a suitcase. Drove halfway across the state. But she got lost somewhere just outside of town. No GPS signal. No street signs. Just trees. And fog. And eventually, she passed a building she knew. Ashgrove Heights. Somehow, impossibly, she'd circled back. That night, she dreamed of mirrors. They were everywhere. In her apartment, in the lobby, in the elevator, and in every one of them, her reflection watched her without blinking. Sometimes it moved before she did. Sometimes it didn't move at all. And sometimes it grinned. She woke to find her bathroom mirror fogged up, even though she hadn't showered. For words had been drawn with a fingertip. You're still in here. Emily drove to a hotel and paid cash. No name. No ID. She avoided mirrors. Slept in her clothes. Covered the vents with towels. But on the second night, her reflection was back. In the window. Not mimicking. Just watching. And in the faint reflection behind it. Room 616. She snapped. Got in her car. Drove straight back to Ashgrove Heights. Stormed into the lobby. Fists clenched, ready to scream. But the front desk was empty. The air was too still. And all the clocks read 6:16. The elevator opened before she pressed anything. She stepped in. The buttons had no numbers now. Just a single mirror where the panel should be. She stared into it. Her reflection looked exhausted. Pale. But alive. She reached out and touched it. The mirror rippled. And her reflection smiled. When the doors opened, she was already inside room 616. No walking. No hallway. Just there. The lights were on. The air was warm. The walls pulsed faintly, alive again. And across the room, standing beside the bed, was herself. Not a reflection. Not a ghost. A second Emily. But not quite right. Her smile was wide and still. Her eyes empty. Emily backed away. What are you? She whispered. The other Emily tilted her head. I'm what you left behind. I left this place. You left you. The air buzzed. The walls darkened. And suddenly, every mirror in the room lit up. Bathroom. Closet. Even the blank screen of the TV. Each one held a different version of her. Screaming. Crying. Whispering. Grinning. And in unison they all said, You can't escape if you don't know which one you are. The lights blew out. Darkness swallowed the room. Emily ran. Into the hallway. Into the elevator. But there was no escape. Only mirrors. Only versions. Only reflections, endlessly multiplying down corridors that stretched into forever. She slammed open a door. Fell through. Hit the floor of her motel room. Panting. Bleeding. Alone. The mirror above the sink was cracked now. But her reflection still stared. Still smiled. And whispered, One of us left. One of us stayed. Guess which one you are. Emily stopped sleeping. Every time she closed her eyes, the dreams returned, fractured scenes stitched together by whispers and flickering lights. Rooms that stretched forever. Elevators with no exits. Doors that led only to versions of herself she no longer recognized. She didn't know how long it had been since she left Ashgrove Heights. 3 days? A week? Time felt thinner now, like wallpaper peeling off a crumbling wall. She tried to ground herself, set alarms, write the date on her hand, record herself speaking each morning. But every time she played it back, her voice said something she hadn't recorded. Once the file simply said, You didn't make it out. The key to room 616 was gone from her bag. She hadn't lost it. She hadn't put there in days. But when she checked her jacket pocket that morning, it was back. Heavy. Warm. She walked into the motel bathroom and looked in the mirror. Her reflection stared back, hollow-eyed. She leaned closer. "I left," she whispered. The reflection blinked. "Did you?" Later that day, she went to a library, desperate for answers. She looked up every record she could find on Ashgrove Heights. All said the same thing. Demolished in 1998. She blinked hard. Clicked the links. Pictures showed rubble. Cracked concrete. A sign. Hazard site. No entry. There were no recent photos. Nothing about room 616. No leasing records. No Mr. Daniels. No her. She searched her name in tenant databases. No match. No record. No Emily Carter. She stumbled out of a library, trembling. Called Laura. Voicemail. She called again. Finally, an answer. "Hello." But it wasn't Laura. Not really. "Who is this?" Emily asked. Silence. Then her own voice answered. "I told you. One of us left." Click. She sat in her car, parked on a random street, eyes locked on the rearview mirror. Her reflection blinked at the same time. Then not. Then too slowly. Then smiled. She drove. No plan. No destination. Only one certainty growing inside her. If she didn't find the version of herself that got out, she'd forget which one she was. Maybe she already had. At a red light, she caught her reflection in a storefront window. It waved, but her hand didn't. That night, back in the motel, she taped every mirror, every screen, every reflective surface. She wrapped her phone in a towel, hid the TV in the closet, smashed the bathroom mirror with a shoe. But it didn't help, because she didn't need glass to see them anymore. They lived behind her eyelids. When she blinked, she saw them. Rows of Emily's standing side by side in room 616. Some with bloodied hands. Some smiling sweetly. Some clawing at the inside of the walls. And one, the one closest to the door, that one was still trying to leave. She woke up sitting at the edge of her motel bed. She didn't remember falling asleep. On the nightstand sat her phone. A new video was open. She pressed play. The screen was dark for 5 seconds. Then her own face filled the frame. "If you're watching this," the video version said, "you didn't leave." Emily dropped the phone. It kept playing. "You're the one that stayed. You're the copy. You were supposed to let me out." The screen flickered and the voice shifted. Now deeper. Echoed. "But I like it here. And so will you." She backed into the corner, heart racing. Every part of her body screamed that she was still real, still herself. But the room didn't feel like a motel anymore. The carpet beneath her feet, the same as 616. The lamp beside her bed, the one from the living room, the closet door, was open, and something inside breathed. Emily ran. Through the door. Down the hall. But the hallway was wrong. Too long. Too dark. Too familiar. She'd seen this corridor before. Walked it before. Because she had never really left. Emily didn't remember opening the motel door. She just found herself standing in a hallway that wasn't hers. Carpet the color of dried blood. Wallpaper curling like old skin. And the air, so warm it felt like breath. She turned around to leave, but the door was gone. Behind her, only more hallway. Endless. Silent. Except for the whispering. The same voice over and over again. You were never alone. She walked. Each step was slower. Heavier. Not because she was tired, because the hallway felt like it didn't want her to move. Like it wanted her to stay. To sink. Every door she passed had a number. Every single one. She picked a door. Any door. Opened it. Inside, a copy of her apartment. Same furniture. Same decor. But wrong. The lamp flickered green. The kitchen faucet dripped black. And something was breathing in the closet. She stepped backward. And the door slammed shut behind her. Okay, she whispered. Okay, think. She reached for her phone. No service. Battery full. One notification. Missed call yourself. She turned to the mirror above the couch. It hadn't been there before. In it, her reflection stood still. Too still. And behind her, someone else moved. But when she spun around, the room was empty. She looked back at the mirror. The figure was closer. She closed her eyes. Breathe. Get out. You have to get out. When she opened her eyes again, the reflection mouthed something. Not her, but the other her. Words written on the mirror's surface in fog. We're already inside. The lights shut off. Total darkness. Then footsteps. Slow. Sticky. Coming from every direction. She pressed herself against the wall, heartbeat thudding. The closet creaked open. A long sigh drifted out. Then a whisper. You've always been here. She bolted. Found the door. Twisted the knob. It opened into another hallway. This one was worse. Everything was upside down. Chairs on the ceiling. Doors sideways. Gravity pulling sideways. At the far end stood someone. Facing away. An Emily. But not moving. Not speaking. Just waiting. Emily turned to run. And smacked directly into herself. Another Emily. This one smiling too wide. Eyes solid black. Found you, she whispered. And grabbed Emily's arm. Her fingers burned like acid. Emily screamed, twisted free, and ran down the sideways hallway. Every door she passed whispered her name. Emily. Emily. Stay with us. She found a door labeled exit, pushed through, and landed back in her apartment. Room 616. Only this time it was different. Dark. Dusty. Cobwebs thick across the ceiling. No lights. No power. No noise. Just a mirror on every wall. Each one showing a different version of her. Crying. Bleeding. Smiling. Watching. She turned slowly. Behind her, in the real room, not the reflection, stood all of them. Every Emily that had stayed. Their mouths opened. In unison they said, "You were never alone in the room. You were just the last to realize it." Emily screamed, but her scream made no sound, because her mouth wasn't hers anymore. The mirrors shattered all at once, glass flying everywhere, and every shard showed a different version of her, until none of them matched. She closed her eyes, whispered one word, "Please." And then, silence. When she opened her eyes, she was in the elevator. The walls were mirrored. The only button read, 616, and her reflection smiled and said, "Going up." The elevator didn't move. It just stood there, quiet, mirrored, humming faintly like it was breathing. Emily stared at the single glowing button marked 616. No other options. No floor numbers. No emergency call. Only her reflection. Watching her. Smiling. Slightly delayed. She reached for the button. Hesitated. Then pressed it. The elevator lurched, but not up. It sank. Slowly. Silently. And as it descended, the reflections in the mirrors began to change. Not showing her anymore. Showing other people. A man screaming. A child covering her ears. A woman rocking back and forth in the corner. All inside room 616. All of them repeating the same thing. The door only opens inward. The elevator stopped. The doors slid open with a hiss. She expected to see a hallway. Instead, there was only a mirror. Wall to wall. Floor to ceiling. And on the other side of it, room 616. Still. Waiting. She stepped out. Her feet didn't touch floor. They touched glass. The entire room was mirrored now. Reflections stretching infinitely in every direction, warped and pulsing faintly like something was crawling just beneath. She tried to speak, but her voice came back late, like an echo from the wrong mouth. There were doors, but none with handles. Windows, but they looked out into herself. Every attempt to escape led her back into another version of the same room. Sometimes the lights were different. Sometimes the shadows moved on their own. Once she opened a closet and found herself hanging from the ceiling. Still breathing. Still smiling. At the center of the mirrored maze stood a chair. And on the chair a small box. She walked toward it. Fingers trembling, she opened the lid. Inside was a key. Her old one. Room 616. It shimmered with a faint green glow. And beneath it a note. "You are now the keeper." She stepped back. No. No, I left. I made it out. I remember. The room around her pulsed once. The mirrors blinked. Then cracked. Slightly. Hairline fractures spreading like veins. She looked at her reflection. It no longer smiled. It screamed. She covered her ears. Fell to her knees. And then silence. She stood in the hallway again. Just outside room 616. Lights flickering. Door ajar. The brass numbers glowing faintly. And inside herself. The real her? Maybe. She was sitting on the couch, staring at the TV, face blank. Emily reached out, touched the door. It swung open with a groan. The version of her on the couch turned, slowly. "You made it," she said. Emily stepped inside. "I just want to leave." "You did. But you also stayed. And now, someone has to keep the door open." Emily shook her head. "No, I'm not staying here. I know who I am." The other her smiled. "Do you?" She vanished. Just like that. Like smoke in a breeze. And Emily stood alone. In room 616. The door shut behind her. Locked. The walls pulsed again. The lights dimmed. The key dropped from her hand and landed on the floor with a soft click. Outside, the building faded. Back to condemned. Boarded up. Forgotten. Room 616 no longer existed, except for those who could still hear it calling. If you listen at night, when everything is quiet, you might hear a soft knock from inside your walls. You might hear your name whispered through the vents. And if you ever find yourself alone in a room with no mirrors, that's not true, because you're never really alone. Especially not in 616, because that door only ever opens inward. The lights in room 616 never turn off anymore. They flicker sometimes, but they stay lit. Dim, pale, greenish. Not enough to feel safe, just enough to see what's watching. Emily stopped counting the days. They stretch endlessly like the hallway outside. The clock on the microwave blinks 6:16 no matter how many times she resets it. Sometimes she tries the door. Sometimes she doesn't. It never opens. She doesn't sleep. Not really. The room lets her close her eyes, but only to show her more. Other versions of herself. Other tenants. All in the same room. Some pacing. Some screaming, some scratching words into the walls with their fingernails. I was here first. She's not me. The room remembers. And it does. Room 616 never forgets. It remembers every breath taken inside it, every footstep, every reflection that didn't match. And now it remembers Emily. But not just the one still sitting here. All the Emilys. The one who screamed. The one who opened the closet. The one who looked too long into the mirror. And the one who's watching right now, eyes wide thinking, I made it out. But the room knows better. Sometimes it shows her things. Not visions. Not memories. Promotions. Previews. It shows her you, reading this, leaning closer, wondering if the story is almost over. It watches you the way it watched her, curious, hungry, patient. Because if you've come this far, the room already knows your name. One night, Emily woke to find a chair facing her. It hadn't been there before. On the seat was a notepad and a pen. Blank. Waiting. The first page had a sentence written in looping, familiar handwriting. You're the story now. And beneath it, leave the door open. She laughed then. It sounded hollow, paper thin. She picked up the pen and began to write. Now room 616 has a new keeper. She doesn't need to knock. She doesn't need to scream. She just waits, smiling. And if you ever find an apartment listing that seems too cheap in a building you swear used to be condemned, if the leasing agent smiles just a little too wide, if your unit number is 616, walk away, because if you step inside, the door won't open for you again. At least, not in the way you expect. Because 616, it never lets go. It just adds you to the story.